A very famous speaker was procrastinating until the last minute of writing his speech. In fact, he went on stage without the entire speech. He was a procrastinator. Then, on stage, he added 4 more words to it. He decided to start the speech with the words, "I have a dream." What do you think when you hear the word procrastination? Is that a positive or a negative word to you? We typically think of the word in a negative way. We associate it with laziness, with being disorganized, not strategic. But did you know that there are actually positive aspects to procrastination? In this episode, I will first show both the negative and positive aspects of procrastination. I will also give you some advice on how to decide whether to procrastinate or not. But the most important part is that I will show you how to determine whether you should trust the procrastinator or not, and whether you should be trusted based on your procrastination profile. That decision will be based on the personality compatibility component of trustworthiness and will be explained through the lens of the first 4 laws of trust, namely that trust is relative.
Welcome to The Trust Show. I'm Yoram Solomon, your host, the author of the Book of Trust, and facilitator of the Trust Habits Workshop. My mission is simple. I want to help you form habits that build your trustworthiness, because the answer to this question will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you?
So since we typically think of procrastination as being a negative thing, let's start with the negative aspects of procrastinating. First is you get to the last minute and then you find that you need more information and there's not enough time to get that information. The second thing is that it's just too late for something. You waited and you waited and you waited, and there's a part of something you need to sign for something online, and all of a sudden you find that you missed the deadline. The early bird discount or something like this. It's just too late. It's not too late to register to the conference. It's just too late to get the early bird price or discount. Something else that sometimes happens is we wait, and then all of a sudden the schedule gets pulled in. As it turns out, this activity is more important and needs to happen sooner rather than later. And all of a sudden now you're hitting against the deadline because you haven't started already. Some people are stressed when they get close to the deadline. I know that to me, sometimes I get stressed, sometimes I don't. And it's more of a personal thing. But if you get stressed when it gets closer to the deadline, then procrastination is a bad thing. Life happens. All of a sudden, you thought that you had the time to do this, and something happens, something major, something more important, and you have to stop. You can't complete it. You're not going to complete this task on time because life happened, because something else with higher priority took precedence. There is a higher probability if you wait until the last minute, there's a higher probability that you're going to forget about it. Forget about doing it. Forget what is it exactly that you were doing. Remember that when you were giving the task, you knew exactly what needs to be done. And if you waited, you procrastinated, now you may not remember what exactly you need or what you needed to do. Finally, there are consequences. The more procrastinating you are, the more you procrastinate, the closer you get to the deadline, obviously the higher the probability that you're going to miss the deadline, and then there could be consequences. For example, in my classes at the university, my students know that your assignment is due 11:59 p.m. At 12 midnight, your assignment is overdue, and it actually means that you get a 0. Not a discount or not a lower grade, but a 0. So there are consequences. These are the bad things about procrastination. let's look at the good things about procrastination. I looked at my list and I realized that I had 7 bullets on bad things about procrastination and 8 bullets about good things about procrastination. So let's look at the good things. One is the more time that you give yourself, the higher the probability that you're going to get more ideas. You have a set of ideas ready for this assignment, but the longer you wait, the higher the probability you will have more ideas. You may come up with better alternatives. So, when you needed to come up with the alternative, the path that you're going to take to finish this assignment, all of a sudden, because you gave yourself time, not all of a sudden, but because you gave yourself time, better alternatives came around. Maybe you found new information. There's information you didn't even know before. Maybe information that didn't even exist before if you were going to start as soon as you got the idea. Ideas tend to incubate in your head. You may get an idea and not realize that it's tied to the project that you're working on. And it's only if this idea stayed in your head for long enough that all of a sudden you're going to make that connection. And that idea would help you in your project. The longer you wait, the more people you can ask and get more advice. You can use people as sounding boards. You just get more time to do that. Sometimes projects get canceled. If the project gets canceled, aren't you lucky not to have already done it or done your part of it? So, and that happened to me. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I do get double booked, and I wait not until the absolute last minute, but I don't immediately cancel one of the meetings, because sometimes meetings tend to get canceled. And so if one of them get canceled, wasn't I smart not to have canceled the other one? The project can get canceled, but the schedule can just get pulled out. As it turns out, you're not the only person working on this, and other people have not completed their part. And so maybe now the project gets scheduled out, and maybe you just rushed too quickly to finish it on time. And, there is no sense of urgency, not anymore. The last thing is that things change. Sometimes things just change. And the environment, the scenario, the situation for which you started the project is no longer the same as we get closer to the deadline. And so all of a sudden, you worked on the project, you did your part based on what you knew when you started, but things have changed. So the longer you waited, the more appropriate, relevant will your deliverable be, because it's suited to the circumstances at the end, at the due date, at the due time. Procrastination is not all bad.
If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe to this channel, and get notified when I release more videos like this.
So how can you tell if you should procrastinate or not? A few pieces of advice. One is ask yourself, do I stress out if I get too close to the deadline? If you do, don't procrastinate. Do it early. If you don't, if it doesn't bother you that much, then wait, benefit from the advantages of procrastination. Ask yourself, as soon as possible, even if you do intend to procrastinate, do I have everything that I need? Do I know what the milestones in between are? Is there any deadline that I'm going to miss by waiting for the final deadline? Get all the material, get all the information, have it up front. Now ask yourself, what is the probability that I'm going to get more ideas? Sometimes you just know that the probability is very low that I'm going to get new ideas, or it's high. I know that something else is going to happen tomorrow that I know will give me more ideas. So why don't I wait until after tomorrow? What is the probability of having better alternatives? Same thing. Is there anything that you can forecast, that you can project that will happen between now and the time you absolutely must work on it so that you don't miss the final deadline, that would give you better alternatives, or people that you can ask? people that you're going to run into. I know that I'm meeting someone in 2 days and I still have time for that other project. And I'm going to ask that person a few questions. And I know that that's going to help me deliver a higher quality project. What is the probability that something urgent will come up, that life will happen? Is there a probability that something will come up that will prevent me from finishing this project? If it's a high probability, then you may want to finish it now. If very low probability, you can wait. What is the probability of you forgetting about this project altogether? That's something to ask. If you think that there's a high probability and there's no other way for you to keep this from happening, then maybe you do it now. If there's a low probability, you can wait. And finally, what is the impact? What are the consequences of meeting the deadline, meeting the final deadline? If there is a significant, serious consequences for missing the deadline, keep in mind that the more you procrastinate, the more you get closer to the deadline, the higher the probability that you will miss it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You finish it, you're done, then you're not going to miss it. But if there is a good probability that if there's serious consequences, you may not want to wait until absolutely the last minute. Here is something that you can do. And this is something that I like to do. I split the project into 2 parts. Obviously, the first part is the information gathering. Do I have everything that I need? But you can also create something that is not perfect. It's not the quality that you would typically deliver, but it's good enough if something happened and you were not going to have the time to finish it by the deadline. Then I have something. I need to prepare a presentation. So I'm preparing the presentation. It's good enough if for some reason I don't get the time to finish it, to do more, it's good enough. The closer I get to the deadline, I have more information, more people to ask. I can make it better, but at least I know that I have something. The title of this podcast is The Trust Show. So how is procrastination related to trust? And maybe an even stronger question, should you trust a procrastinator? And should you be trusted if you are a procrastinator, or the other way around? So the first answer is it depends. And if you remember, the first 4 laws of trust are, or if you don't remember, they are really combined in aggregate. They are that trust is relative. Trust is continuous, trust is contextual, it is personal, and it is asymmetrical. So how does that work? First of all, there is the component of personality compatibility. You may be a procrastinator and I'm not. Now, if you are a procrastinator and I'm not, I'm someone who, as soon as we get the project, I start working on it. Do you trust me? Probably you do, because you know that I'm going to be done. But I would have a hard time trusting you. The fact that I am not a procrastinator, the fact that I dread getting too close to the deadline and you are not, and I rely on you, I depend on you, may prevent me from trusting you. Note, by the way, that this is an asymmetrical relationship. You trust me, you're a procrastinator, I'm not. I don't trust you, I'm not a procrastinator, but you are. So it's asymmetrical. But it's important to know that procrastination, I gave you reasons why it's good, why it's bad. It's not really an absolute, it's not a universal good or bad. It is relative, which is one of the unique aspects of my approach to trust. It is relative, which means that it is just different. You and I will trust each other based on what we are in terms of procrastination or not, and what the other person is. And it doesn't make one of us trusted by all people or distrusted by all people. In summary, procrastination is not necessarily bad. There are good things about procrastination, there are bad things about procrastination. It's not a universal characteristic that's good or bad. there is the element of personality compatibility that would mean that would affect whether one of us trusts the other or not if we are different, or even if we're the same. You know what? Maybe a procrastinator would not trust another procrastinator, but probably more than somebody who's not a procrastinator would trust a procrastinator. So it's asymmetrical, it is relative, and it is personal, and it is not an absolute or universal good or bad. Thank you for watching.
This is the shorter video version of the Trust Show podcast. You can listen to the full episode anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts.